really scared away this time, I marched to the front door, flipped on the outside light, and threw open the door. The cool air wafted in, as well as an odor I wasn't familiar with. The best way to describe it is to say it smelled like old, musty, or moldy clothes. I cast the beam of the flashlight across the yard and instantly caught sight of something racing into the woods, and from the half-a-second glance, it appeared to be on 2 legs. I kept the beam on the spot I'd last seen it, but it was gone. I first thought it odd that it was on 2 legs, but remembered that bears sometimes walk on their hind legs. Like earlier, I hollered, "Go away and leave me alone!" I looked at the trash can and saw that it was fine. Hoping that was enough, I closed the door, but instead of turning the light off, I kept it on and went back to bed. The next morning, I woke to find nothing out of sorts and went about my day until later that afternoon I was clearing out some debris from around the trailer when I discovered 2 large indentions in the ground just beneath my bedroom window. I examined them more closely, and to my astonishment, they appeared to be large footprints. I shook my head, as I couldn't believe what I was seeing. How could those be footprints, and massive ones at that? I didn't take a picture, as I didn't have a digital camera at the time, and if I were to go off of memory, I'd say they were at least 15 inches in length and had to be 7 inches wide. I could make out toes and would guess the prints were 2+ inches deep. I stepped back, dumbfounded, looked up, and saw that my window was about 8 feet off the ground. I clearly recalled seeing something move in front of the window, so that had to mean that whoever was standing outside my bedroom window was 8 feet or more tall. A tinge of fear creeped up on me. None of it made sense. I then began to think it was my ex harassing me, that he somehow found where I lived and was now here causing me trouble. My initial fear gave way to fury and anger. I marched inside the trailer, picked up the phone, and called his mobile phone. The second he answered, I'd give him a piece of my mind. The phone rang a couple of times and went to voicemail. Filled with anger, I left a scathing message and hung up. I set the phone back in the cradle and exited the trailer, feeling better about myself. I wouldn't tolerate him harassing me like he had during our last year in marriage. There was no way I'd let him take away from the peace and solitude of my new life. The afternoon gave way to evening. I grilled a nice steak, popped a beer, and relaxed on a chair, looking north towards the Sawtooth Mountains. As the sun set behind the mountains, I found myself gripped by a feeling that someone was watching me. I don't know how to describe why I felt that way, but I could feel it. My 6th sense was telling me someone was in the woods near the tree line. Curious if it was my ex, I got up from my chair, beer in hand, and went down to the edge of the woods. I looked around, but couldn't make out anything in the dark shadows of the hulking ponderosas and aspens. I called out my ex's name and finished by saying, "If you keep bothering me, I'll call the sheriff. Do you hear me?" Of course, there wasn't a reply. In fact, there wasn't any sound at all coming from the woods. I tossed the rest of my beer back and threw the empty bottle. I heard it land, waited for a second to see if I could hear any movement at all, then turned around and went back to my chair. I opened my cooler, took out another beer, popped the top, and sat down to enjoy one last drink before I went inside. I could feel the fatigue of the long day laboring around the yard wearing on me, and before I knew it, I was fast asleep. I woke suddenly, my body chilled. I was surrounded by the dark of night. I looked around, fearful, as I felt the presence in the darkness. I had no idea how long I'd been asleep, nor what time it was, but something wasn't right. I wanted to get up and move, but I felt frozen in fear. My head swiveled around as my eyes desperately tried to make something out, but I couldn't see a thing except for the brilliant stars above. I craned my head in the direction of the trailer, but the light I thought I had left on was out. Then I heard it. The sound of footfalls coming towards me from the edge of the woods filled my body with terror. I found the courage to get to my feet, and without a concern for what could be in